Hey y'all, it is Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. So I did have plans for what I wanted to talk about today, but then something happened yesterday which was a little bit demoralizing story-wise, and I wanted to talk about that instead and see if anyone out there can sympathize. A few years ago, I wrote a YA contemporary romance and a sequel for that story actually, which was really just near and dear to my heart. It was a bit of a passion project, so if I had to describe it in a word, I would probably call it like nostalgic. Imagine like sepia tones, sunsets, and stargazing and beat up pickup trucks, like basically a country song, but in story form, kind of like all the things that make us feel warm and fuzzy about summer. That's sort of the vibe. The point is that this story, even though it needs like so much work and I would need to do so much to it to get it like ready for anything, it is just so near and dear to my heart. Like, I love this story. I poured so much of myself into it, so it feels very personal to me. Of everything I've written, those characters are definitely the most real and the most raw, and it's like my heart story. Like, they're like my second family, seriously. Weirdly enough though, I had come to the conclusion a couple years after finishing that I was going to shelve this project, that maybe it was just a me project. I wrote it for myself and I'm not going to do anything with it, and like that's fine. It just needs too much work. So I was like resigned to that. I was at peace with that. But then lately, it's been sort of on my mind again, and I've been realizing that like I don't really feel ready to just give up on it. Like, I would like to have the opportunity to like rewrite and see how strong I can make it before I quit on it, if that makes any sense. So that's been sort of my headspace. Like, in the back of my mind, it was kind of like, someday I would really like to come back to that and see if I can rewrite it and make it stronger. Then, over the past little bit, my mom has been watching this TV show, and yesterday I just happened to like sit in for a bit of it just to see like, okay, how is this? And it's a good show, but it's also very similar to the story that I wrote, and it was really, really discouraging because even though the premises were like different, it is still like a family healing story, and some of the names are similar, and like even though they're not exactly the same, the things that are similar are very similar, if that makes any kind of sense. Even though I was already resigned like just weeks earlier to setting aside my story and not doing anything with it, it still hit me like really hard. Like, I was really genuinely upset about this. Like, okay, now what? I wrote this story that I really love and that's really important to me, and now I can't do anything with it even if I wanted to, because like it will just look like I copied this show, even though I had never even heard of this show and was not copying anything. So it sent me into a bit of a tailspin, I'm not gonna lie to you. And I don't know like what changed overnight between being at peace with letting it go and like just really wanting to have another go at it, but I think that just speaks to like how near and dear it is to my heart and how important the story and these characters are to me. I like had to talk it through and like kind of get myself over the initial disappointment, but then I also had to like bring it to God and just surrender it to him, and surrender not only the idea that it could go somewhere, but to surrender the timing of it too. Like, if it was going to happen, if I was going to tackle it again, it wouldn't be anytime soon, and that could be for the best. If it doesn't go anywhere and I just wrote that story completely for myself, then like that's fine. It wasn't a waste of time. Like, I grew a ton as a writer while working through those two drafts, and B, if God does want me to eventually tackle it again and try to do something with it, it's not going to be anytime soon. It needs so much work. For one thing, research. Like, so much research needs to be done. I have some like alcoholism themes, some abuse themes, even some of the medical stuff that goes on with one of the characters. In my initial pass through, I was able to depict those things somewhat generally and get away with that. But if I did it again, I think I'd want to get more into the nitty-gritty just to make it more authentic. Setting is another one. Like, I situated the story in like a fictional town in a fictional area. But again, if I rewrote, I think I would want to like flesh out what that town looks like a little more and like capture the experience of what it's like to live in a community specifically like this. So I might want to use like a reference town or just put it in a real location, which again would require a ton of research. The sequel, a main conflict in that plot is blindness. I did do research on that, but I would want to do more just because that's something that I feel like is really important to capture faithfully, especially for people who share that experience. All that to say, there's like a ton of research that needs to be done. It's a story that I love, and it was worth it for me to write it, even if nothing happens, or even if it happens down the road, which might be better in this case. So that was my little crisis that I had to work through last night. I'm still a little down about it, if I'm being completely honest, but I feel like that's normal. Like, it's always a little bit demoralizing when you come up with an idea and then realize that someone else beat you to it. But again, like, it's just something that I'm working on surrendering, and I'm willing to be okay with whatever God decides, knowing that like no matter what, these characters are going to stay with me and they're always going to be like my fictional family. So there's that. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to like and subscribe and comment below with your experience. Like, has this ever happened to you? Do you find it easy to just like shake off, or do you find it a little bit demoralizing too? Let's sympathize. We can work through it together. And as always, do not forget to spend some time in the clouds today.